It is me, your boy JDZ, and I am back here for the first time on the World Class Cards Procast. I am new to the crew, but with me, as always, is going to be Thiago, and we have some pros in the building that's going to be sharing some of their insights and thoughts, and we're going to have a nice, riveting discussion on things happening as winter is coming to Lorcana. So really quickly, we're just going to kind of go around the horn. Thiago, how you feeling? How you looking? How you living? Welcome to the Procast.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very sick for the last few days, so I could be better, but new sets coming out, so an exciting time, bunch of events on the way, so a lot to look forward to.
Right on. And a man who needs no introduction, the two-time DLC champion, Mr. Frank Karsten is here. How have you been?
Been well. Haven't really played all that much Lorcana in recent months, but with the introduction of Winterspell, I'm just really excited to dive back in, brew new decks, explore new possibilities, and yeah, also compete at the upcoming DLC in Ghent.
Right on, right on. And someone who you will recognize, but you may not have seen in the World Class Cards kit up until now, newest DLC champion, Fungus, is among us right now, winning a DLC in Richmond. Fungus, how have you been?
Hey, JDZ, what's going on? Not too bad, man. Coming off the hype and looking for this new set. I guess I'm a little excited to get some cards in my hand this week. Got a couple of cases coming in and going to be opening up a lot of packs. So I'm getting more and more hype as I play with the cards and see more possibilities. So I'm ready to go. Also looking forward to Ghent. I was going to go to Australia, but that's a bad time for me. So I'm gonna skip that one. Let DKP and Thiago have it.
Right on.
That was free for you guys.
Understand. They can have it. But not featured on screen, on voice, we have the North American Continental Champion, DLC Champion, Ed Chu. Ed, are you still there?
What's good?
What's good?
Chilling. What's up?
And I think No I'm Not is here as well. No I'm Not, are you going to participate?
He's driving.
Oh, never mind. Okay, please safe. Do not podcast and drive. But gentlemen, I want to thank you guys so much for assembling here and allowing me to be here with you. I am excited to be a part of the organization now. If you guys are new and you don't know who I am, I'm JDZ Quest. I'm a broadcaster, content creator, and also, YouTuber extraordinaire, and I'm joining the team to help with the media aspect of it. So if you don't like me, hopefully you get a chance to get used to my face. But enough of me. Fungus, we're going to talk to you coming onto the team. The newest member.
Before that, I want to first congratulate you, JDZ. We are really happy to have you. Congratulate Fungus on joining. We're really excited to be adding you guys. And I also want to introduce Rob and give him a chance to say what's up.
I didn't see. I can't see. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. My bad, Thiago. Thank you. I'm so sorry. I couldn't. I looked, and they weren't there a moment ago. I'm so sorry.
Yes, I was.
It was my fault. My screen was too far up.
You're good, man. It's okay. You're good.
We're locked in. Okay. Please, Rob, anything else you want to say? The first North American and European Continental invitee. How are you feeling?
I'm just chilling, man. Just chilling.
Right on. Just chilling. How's the weather?
Cold. Yeah.
That's
it's
right.
Kind of Dutch. So.
Okay. Right on. But anybody else that I might have left off? Anybody else that's here that's going to participate? Go ahead and say something, and we can get this thing underway.
I think we're good to go.
Cool. But
Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. Well, I was kicking it over to Fungus because I wanted to welcome him to the team. I just want to hit some of your initial thoughts on being included on this organization and how's that feel. I know that it's something that aligns with your goals. You're trying to play as much as you can and being on this team. Any initial thoughts on being here, and what do you hope to get from your time here?
Yeah, obviously, was looking for, like-minded people to be testing with and kind of growing with for a little bit. I expressed that a little bit before, but awesome players here, already engaged, a lot of good conversations, and starting to really get some testing in and just have really thoughtful conversations. And I really value the players that are on this team, and that was one of the big decisions that made me come here. Is that definitely Thiago and Kendall. No, I'm not talk to those guys a ton, but all the other people I hadn't talked to a ton that had reached out to me and had started conversations, stuff like that, definitely made me want to join this environment and let me know it's going to be a welcoming one and one where I can be fruitful and contribute well. So looking forward to Ghent and that being a really breakout performance where I can see how we vibe with the team and make myself better and hopefully help improve for the team as well.
Right on, right on. I look forward to seeing your rise to the top and your ascension, and maybe you can get another DLC to go under your belt. But gentlemen, as we get this thing started, we're in our new set. Winterspell is underway. A lot of people around the community at large are very excited about this set for the same reason that Frank Karsten already alluded to. There are a lot of new cards. Seems like a deck builders type of set. A lot of creative things that you can do with this set. So as we're starting this thing off really quick, I just want to open up the floor to just get some of your guys' insights. What do you guys think about Winterspell and where this can go for the meta game going forward? So we'll just kind of throw it open around the horn. I'm going to start with Thiago, and then you pass the buck to whoever you want. What do you think about this opening, this new set? Your initial thoughts on Winterspell and where you think this thing can go?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really exciting. There's a lot of new tools, a lot of powerful cards. I think the history of the game has suggested that once the rotation already happens and a lot of the top decks are established, it kind of takes a lot to dethrone them. I think like after set 6, set 7 and 8 were a lot of the same, only with like minor upgrades to a lot of the top decks. Of course, rotation shook things up, but then set 10 was very similar to set 9. I think in set 9, we went the entire meta with the same big four that we like entered the meta with. Purple Steel, Blurple, Green Blue, and Amber Steel, and then Dogs ended up appearing. And then the set 10 meta, there was clearly 4 decks that separated, which were those same 5 decks except minus Amber Steel. And so I think that the powerful lines that these decks have, the ramping into Elsa off of a good curve or Singing Strength on turn 4 with a lot of card draw, and these Clarabelle, You're Welcome packages, like the game would have to be like insanely power crept for these to not be some of the strongest things you can be doing. So I think that even though there's a lot of exciting tools, I think it's more so going to be these cards being added to the decks that we have already seen dominate the last couple formats, with a few newcomers coming in potentially. But I would not be shocked if we're playing a lot of similar matchups that we were before. I think some of the decks are getting different levels of upgrades. Like I think Dogs getting a card like the Grandmother Willow will make it better than another deck that is adding no new cards, like something like Green Blue. But then that's also going to have a couple ramifications. Like we're going to see maybe less of the slower decks like Green Blue, because the more aggressive decks get more tools, and so then that introduces space for some of the more mid-rangey strategies like Purple Steel to come and prey on some of the aggressive strategies, which will start a cycle again of giving the slow deck something to feast on. So I would not be surprised if we see a lot of the same decks, but definitely some interesting new things, and we're seeing people trying all sorts of new cards, so it's going to be interesting to see like which ideas stick.
Interesting. Does anyone agree? I mean, what do you think about that, Fungus?
Yeah, I got something to add there. Thiago hit the nail on the head for a lot of this, right? The one thing I'd kind of add to that is in this early metagame, at least what I have seen, is the Amber decks are eating, right? These Amber decks, especially Grandmother Willow, we talked about that already, but Pudge is another card to watch out for. There are so many different Amber decks that become viable because of these cards, and not only viable, but like really powerful openers, demand answers, right? And in a world where, if you know me, you know I'm a control player. I like at heart, I'm trying to play slow strategies. Like a mid-range is the fastest I will ever go. The control decks are not in a good place right now. Obviously, it's very, very early in the meta. It's hard to know exactly what cards we need to be playing to combat the meta. But right now, aggro is eating. Obviously, Dogs, like the traditional Dogs, adding Grandmother Willow to the deck is really just a strict upgrade. It makes that deck maybe a turn faster on average, or maybe a half turn faster. But the decks that involve Pudge, the decks that involve the 3-cost Nani, is another good one to kind of call out. The Amber decks are gaining a lot of consistency. I think where we didn't really have Amber Steel in the meta, I'm seeing Amber Steel be kind of rising and be a more mainstream deck. So there's a lot more to contend with in the very early turns than there ever was in the prior meta. So we do still have all the powerful cards from last set, but if you're a control deck right now, you're kind of in a tough place where these decks are going hyper fast. And even for the mid-range decks, these decks can draw a lot of cards in conjunction with Pudge and stuff like Rockstar Stitch. So there's a lot of cool new strategies if you're an aggro deck, and if you're a control deck, you're having nightmares currently. So.
Okay. And I know you haven't been playing too much, Frank. I got you here, and we're going to bring in everyone else as well. But what are your initial impressions as someone who hasn't had the opportunity to play as much? Do you agree with what Fungus and Thiago are saying, or do you think that there can potentially be a control deck that can prevail and make waves in this metagame?
I mean, eventually, sure. But for the most part, I absolutely agree with Thiago and Fungus on that the existing decks will remain powerful and are not going away. And with, for example, dogs gaining some relevant new cards, aggro strategies may have a leg up early on. But that said, like the new set brings so many cool new possibilities that I'm just excited to try. And when I brew up a whole bunch of new decks with the new set, most of them are not gonna rise to the top tables of competitive events. But it's always good to try because one time out of 10 you do strike gold, and the strategies work even better than expected. Some of the cards that excited me the most are basically the ones that kind of bend the rules of the game by offering some sort of cost reduction or like an ability to play cards for free. Thiago Fungus already mentioned the Grandmother Willow and the Pudge. Those are good examples of that, but there are also some others that stand out to me. Also in Amber, for example, there's the Angel Siren Singer, showcasing the underdogs mechanic. I do like this mechanic because in Lorcana everyone always already has an advantage on the play, and this can help your deck do better when you're on the draw, which is where you really need to get every edge you get. So all the underdogs seem quite appealing to me, and Angel in particular. I've long played Steel Song, so I've harbored like a soft spot for Cinderella, Ballroom Sensation, and this is sort of a nostalgic echo of that. And yeah, with Angel, I also see the possibility of on the draw leading with that on turn 1, and then singing Akut at Emuti. That's the new song from Winterspell that reduces a cost. Again, like anything that reduces costs or allows you to play things for free catches my fancy. Like that can be a strong curve. And like one possibility that I already brewed a deck around would start with that curve on the draw, and this then allows you to play a 4-drop as early as turn 2, which is quite powerful. And one interesting one might be the other Angel, Experiment 6-4. So if you play that as early as turn 2, well, you can just discard something to clear the opposing board. Have 2 relevant characters or singers on the board, and that's like a solid way to break serve on the draw. So that's what I started my brewing around as one of the many possibilities.
Okay, you guys got me kind of feeling kind of sad as someone who doesn't really like to play against too many aggro decks. I feel you guys are breaking my heart because I want to see a nice lively metagame. I know Amber got a boost. Ed loves playing against aggro. Ed, I'm gonna bring you in, man. What do you think about this Amber resurgence, and what do you think about your teammates and their thoughts on the metagame? Do you agree or do you disagree? Give me some hope, man.
I mean, yeah, last set, I think aggro actually got a lot weaker because of the prevalence of like purple steel. But I think this time, like they got a lot of new tools. And it is pretty scary, right? Especially like the grandmother willow. So
Are we fried, or
grandmother willow,
are we safe, or what?
I mean, there are some tools, right? I think especially like the Tigger being able to bounce back the grandmother willow is kind of good. So I don't think we're completely cooked, but I think some of the on the play advantages that aggro has now is a lot stronger. There's definitely a lot more high rolls, right? I think one of the first decks that everybody's looking at is the new version of dogs, either the standard version or like the stitch version. Just being able to like turbo out tramp even earlier and having a discount has been really strong. I know people before were playing with like the bad version of Willow, right? Like playing the Pluto. But the problem with Pluto was that the one cost Pluto that reduced the cost of your next card. But the problem with that card was that you had to exert it, right? So it was always exposed. But this grandmother, you don't ever have to exert it, and you can just get tons of value from it. So I think that deck is pretty scary. So we'll see what happens.
Man, I thought I was gonna be motivated. I thought you guys were gonna come in here and break the code already, and I guess you can't beat them. You can't join them. Rob, you played some Amethyst last set, man. Maybe Amethyst Steel could come back. Do you see that as a deck that can potentially level the bubbles again? I mean, that deck didn't get much worse. I know you're a Blurple player, but talk to me about Amethyst. Can that equal the playing field a little bit?
Well, Amethyst Steel has never been my forte.
Right.
I think it's mostly been Thiago's, I guess. But the deck is very well versed at fighting aggro decks, and it's very good at breaking the tempo that something like Grandmother Willow could bring. I mean, if it's going to be very dominant, I can just simply see people playing Fire the Cannons again to counter it. So yeah, definitely something like Purple Steel will be very good in a more aggressively slanted meta game.
And it does seem like where we're headed to. But I have seen some people reporting that have been having some success with cards like Spooky Sight or the new board wipe Raging Storm. That's a card that kind of took the community by storm, no pun intended, when it first was revealed. The Raging Storm, 8 cost uninkable board clear. I just want to kind of pick your guys' brain as some of the best players in the game. What do you guys think about this card, and will it be able to kind of be used to help control some of these decks, or is it just too slow and unplayable?
Well, it's basically an 8 ink Be Prepared.
Mhm.
And I will say that the difference between 7 and 8 ink is enormous. That can be a whole full turn of questing. And yeah, when you play against aggro strategies, that can matter a lot in being in time to answer what they're doing. Still, it's in a format where we didn't actually have Be Prepared. It's a sweet build around, and there are perhaps enough Sapphire ramp ink acceleration effects to play it in time. But yeah, again, the difference between 7 and 8 ink should not be underestimated.
Yeah.
I wanted to jump in because I guess I did play this blue-yellow like control deck. And I think the difference between like now and when Be Prepared was introduced was specifically like the new Cinderella from set 10. Because yeah, I mean getting to 8 is quite hard, but I think with the Cindy, it actually makes it quite trivial. Like if you can go Cindy into another princess, you're basically guaranteed to go straight to 8. And a lot of these new princesses, like the Moana, for example, also doesn't force you to like ink a card from your hand, so you can save additional resources from that. The new Belle is also pretty good because if you're able to go Cindy into Belle and then you Raging Storm, you also get to ink both of or all your cards, right? So I think now it's a lot better because of those reasons. And I think the only shell you can really play Raging Storm is probably in a Sapphire shell with Cindy and like focus on the princesses to be able to either recover resources after you spend so much ink, right, to do the board wipe. So I think it's actually much easier now than it was before because I guess before was like the fastest way to be prep. You had to like ramp into like a fishbone quill, and then now you have like no cards in hand, and that wasn't ideal. So I think now with this indie, it actually makes getting to 8 not as difficult.
Mm. Does that same philosophy or same idea kind of go hand in hand with a card like Spooky Sight, or Spooky Sight still staying in the bulk bin? It's not coming out.
So the 8 cost board wipe is really not for aggro, right? Like unless we bridge into that late game where we can actually start casting it. And obviously Cindy is going to be a big part of that. Spooky Sight, Under the Sea, and like your early stopper tools are going to be something we're going to have to lean on. I'm still pretty low on Spooky Sight. Just because there are so many tools where the aggro decks can have throughput, right? They have a lot of card draw these days, either between Stitch, Rockstar Surfer, the Rockstar Stitch, your Docs, your Demonas. You have a lot of different tools, Dumbos, Genie redraws. These decks aren't just stopping on cards anymore. So when we Spooky Sight them, that is not a trivial resource, right? To give them just a pile of ink. So, but it may be in a deterministic deck where we are playing board wipe after board wipe, or Hades into board wipe, into just all the things go into ink, all the things get banished over and over and over again. It may be realistic to play this card. I know people have been trying it in the Sapphire Amber shells to some success. I'm still not super high on it from a blue-green perspective, but I have not tried it I have not tried the Amber Sapphire list yet, so Ed probably knows a lot more there. If this is real life, or if this is just a necessity, or if this is actually even good. But yeah, the 8 cost board wipe is there where it's going to punish the stuff like blue-green, where it really wasn't being punished before. Even stuff like Blurple in that mid-late game, where you have these wide boards and it's just a deterministic board wipe. Blue-green really didn't have any fear of that before, other than other green decks, hitting a Phillip combo. Now you really can go punish for going wide. You kind of have to reserve resources and stuff like that. So it does change the way the game is played. If it doesn't necessarily, not going to stop the aggro decks per se, but it does definitely change the way the meta is going to shape if it ends up being a player.
Okay. I like that. I mean, you brought up a great point. You're talking about the way the meta will shape. I think that kind of is a great way to kind of wrap up our meta discussion that we're having here, and kind of talk about where the meta you think is going to align. So this is an open question. In the previous sets, I think we had a relatively healthy meta game. We had a few mid-range strategies. You had a pretty solid control strategy in Sapphire and Emerald. You had some aggressive decks that were viable in Dogs, and also some copies of Amber Steel and that enigmatic Inkcaster strategy. So I felt as if the set 10 meta game was quite healthy. I don't know if you guys agree with me or not. Do you think we're going to have some of that same identity or archetypes of decks still performing their duties to keep the metagame healthy going into this next set, or do you think it's just going to be some aspect of that is going to be missing, or the matchups won't be nearly as close as they were in the previous formats? Or Thiago, you got it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of similar to before. I know a lot of people are like dooming these aggro decks, but it's not that a deck like the green purple burn deck or amber steel was like a poor deck in the last meta, but these decks just have wildly similar matchup spreads to a deck like Dogs, and then when they play against Dogs, they like literally never win. So you're playing green purple burn. It's like a reasonable deck in that meta. We've seen it have some success, but you're a deck that's like preying on this certain subset of decks, these like blue decks and these slow strategies, and you're like having a difficult time into some of these like mid-range decks like purple steel. And Dogs has a very similar spread to that. However, Dogs like wins the mirror. If you were to play green purple into Dogs, these like kind of same archetype, like this deck's trying to go at the same tempo, then the Dogs deck would always end up on top. So like right now, a lot of the other aggressive decks are kind of catching people's eye, but I think it's going to be the same problem where they are going to run into Dogs, and Dogs is just going to be a better choice because Dogs preys on the other aggressive decks with cards like the 2-cost Tramp and cards like Under the Sea, even just like shifting a 5-cost Lady and starting to brawl with a 4/4 is really, really strong. And then I think they make the best use of the Grandmother Willow. So I think that a lot of the aggressive strategies, the meta share will be predominantly Dogs, and then it kind of makes it easier for the other decks to tailor their game plans to beat the aggressive decks, because the aggressive decks are all kind of combined into just Dogs because it'll eat up the other aggressive decks. And so I think we'll have a pretty healthy cycle of decks knowing what tools they need to be able to combat the aggressive decks, and then it kind of will start the cycle of purple still gets played, and then now a lot of people are playing these these mid-rangey purple decks, and I get to play these slow board clear focus decks like blue yellow or blue green or whatever. And so uh, I'm not like too worried about the aggressive decks like completely taking over the game. I think that the game we've seen cycles like this in previous sets, and I think it's just going to be more of the same.
Okay, I should write this down and keep notes. We'll be able to check back on this at the end of the set once everything has transpired. You'll be able to go back and look at it because I want to see who's going to be right and who's going to be wrong. Well, I want to get everyone's insight on this. Way too early meta prediction. Thiago got his takes in. We'll go to Frank, and then we'll go to Fungus, then we'll go to Ed, and we'll go to Rob, and then we'll just kind of throw it around their horn real quick and see what everyone's thoughts are going to be. I'm gonna go back and watch this at the end to see who exactly was right. But go ahead, Frank. What do you think? Way too early meta prediction. You can throw some colors in there if you like. I know you haven't played any games this set, but still, I think that makes it more fun.
Yeah, I have absolutely no idea, given that I also don't even really know what happened in Core Constructed over the past months. But I will agree with Thiago that, there is almost surely going to be a way to beat every deck in the metagame. We're not going to end up with some sort of equilibrium where, there's a dominant deck that is literally unbeatable. That seems extremely unlikely. For me, when I approach a new set, I honestly don't immediately think of what the metagame is going to be like or how to attack it, but rather I like to think about the new cards and where they might spawn entirely new archetypes and like dive into that creativity. But yeah, which new possibilities are going to be actually strong, that is far too early to tell. That is what some testing will have to reveal over the coming weeks, and that's always the exciting and fun part.
And that's what makes it fun, man. Making the picks before you know what's going to happen, and then like taking a hypothetical guess just to see what it could possibly be. That adds to the fun of it. What about you, Fungus? What colors do you think? What are going to be the meta defining decks of this set if you just had to guess right now? No wrong answers.
Yeah, that's a complex question. I try to give a simplified answer as best I can. With giving some insight, right? So the real answer, I think for me is that is something along the lines of what Thiago said, but I'll add to that. So I will say that it depends on how strong the aggro decks are and how many tools you have to put in your deck dedicated to just those strategies. That will heavily influence what the meta looks like. So if just putting horsemen in your deck is enough to beat these aggro decks, then that's one thing. But if we have to play, I'm staying on Ruby here for a second. I have to play Little Sisu, and I have to play Horsemen, and I have to play Grab Your Bows to have any kind of chance to beat these decks. Or if I'm having to load up 12, 16 slots that are dedicated to very narrow answers to these aggro decks, that's gonna really slide all of our metrics to that side of the field, right? Obviously, one of those tools are going to be great in the control mirrors or in your mid-range games most of the time. So I think that can have a lot of impact on the way the meta shakes out, is how fast and how good these aggro decks are and how resilient they are, right? There definitely are answers. I don't want to doom and gloom that. So if you are a person who doesn't want to play a proactive strategy or doesn't want to play like a really aggressive deck, I think there's room in the meta for you. But I've been playing TCGs for a long time, and I know a lot of the folks in this room have as well. This reminds me the early meta game and some of the broken things that have come along with Pudge and come along with kind of some of the card draw engines just throwing out free things or throwing out nearly free things. Reminds me a lot of Affinity and old Magic the Gathering. The early days of that, they're drawing a ton of cards. They're going very wide. It's awful. In Infinity, if you're a Magic the Gathering player from a very long time ago, those were all artifacts, right? We could attack those decks from a very clean angle, and the meta was kind of closed. That meta was the Affinity decks and the anti-Affinity decks, and that was it. You did not get to play anything else. So if the meta shakes up like that, your options to play other cards kind of get narrower and narrower. So that's my early like danger sense that went off. But we definitely could be somewhere in the middle. Right now, as a person who likes to play slow decks, I'm getting rolled by these Pudges. It's not a good time. But I don't think the world is over just yet.
Dang. I like that. A little glimmer of hope. What about you, Ed? Any bold takes? We're talking bold takes here. We're talking just taking a wild shot in the dark. What do you think the meta is going to be like when this thing finally settles? What decks do you think are going to be on the top? I believe Dogs is going to be there. I think that's a pretty clear cut case. Even unless some dramatic changes happens, I believe Dogs will still be there in the end. But what other two decks do you think is going to be at the finish line there, rising to oppose them and also completing that triangle? Is it Blurple? Is it Ruby and Sapphire? What decks do you think is going to be there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's archetype based, right? Like if Dogs were the, premier deck, then it's like what are the cards that beat Dogs? Usually it's like Ruby cards. But usually Ruby cards are kind of, weak against the other kind of mid-range control strategies. So if that was the case, then, I think purple cards probably have the best kind of mid-range control side of things. So I think the rock, paper, scissors will probably be that Dogs beat like these Amethyst decks, and then the Amethyst decks beat the Ruby decks, then the Ruby decks beat the Dog style decks. So I think that's probably where we're going to end up. And I think Amethyst will probably be the most popular just because, it just has the best draw engine in the game. And like they have Tigger as well to play like anti-evasive, or not anti-evasives, like anti-aggro, as well as Sven as the anti-evasive, anti-aggro card. So there's definitely a lot of options with Amethyst, and you can basically pair it with literally any other color. So it just makes sense that, some kind of Amethyst deck will rise to the top.
I like that. I like your answer. I like your answer so far. Good answer. I think that's a good one. I think that's I can concur with that sentiment. And Rob, are you still there? I know Rob had to leave soon. I can't see if Rob's still here. But Rob, if you're still there, I'd like to hear your feedback as well. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Well, it's very hard to follow all these brilliant Lorcana minds. So I basically agree with everything they're saying. And one thing that I might have to add, that's somewhat interesting, is that I feel like there's going to be a very wavy motion to the metagame. Like last metagame, for instance, you had like these weekends where Thiago was insanely good, and other weekends where it was terrible because everyone had answers. I think there's going to be a similar wavy motion to the next metagame, where on the one weekend, aggro is going to be very dominant, and people are going to be underprepared and just lose to it. Which means that the next weekend they're going to be super over-prepared, and all the Dogs players are going to walk out of the building crying. It's going to be a wavy motion. So I think it's going to be very essential to success to predict the metagame correctly. If you pick the right weekends to play anti-aggro and you face nothing but aggro, you're going to be chilling.
Gonna be hurt. That happens, man. Picking the right deck. That's a whole nother episode right there. That's the next episode of figuring out how to pick the correct deck for the tournament and having the most success. But gentlemen, I feel like you guys all have a great insight, and I'm excited to see how this thing builds, because as you all know, and I don't have to tell you, the metagame is a living and breathing entity that will develop over time, day to day, week to week, and I'll be interested to hear how this develops as we go on throughout the rest of the set. We have a few events coming up. I believe Melbourne is going to be the very first event that gets the first crack at the Winterspell metagame. Then you have the huge DLC in Ghent, followed by some CCQs in between. The biggest one that I know of, Ink Open, is going to be in between that time. So there's a lot of critical information to be gathered, starting almost immediately, and then going from there. Where that stuff develops, it's going to be very interesting to see how it shakes out. So I'll be interested to see how it goes, gentlemen, from there. But any other closing thoughts on the metagame before we shift over and kind of start talking about some deck lists, some deck ideas, and also bring up some of those cards again that we were talking about a little bit earlier. Cool. Nobody's stoked. You guys not pumped? You guys not happy? I'd be so happy to be a part of this, man, opposed to how it used to be before. But gentlemen, we have some deck lists. I asked you all earlier this week to kind of showcase some deck lists, like if you had to play some things you were cooking up and tooling around with. Granted, for the viewers at home that may be watching these are not finished or refined products by any means, but it's definitely enough to get the conversation started. So we'll start with the submissions that Frank Karsten submitted. And I have those up on your screen right now. We started with the Amber Steel Alien Song, you call this deck. So just talk really quickly about the theory, because basically this is all theory crafting at this point. Can you just talk about this deck? Why did you build it this way? And what are some of the highlights that you're looking forward to testing in this unique strategy?
Yeah, so this was, of course, inspired by the old Steel Song deck, except now with sort of an extraterrestrial twist. The angel characters that I already mentioned earlier, they're both aliens, so that allows us to really build around that type. We already had some cards like the Grand Councilwoman Federation leader that boost the lore value of your aliens, or Lilo Best Explorer Ever, who gives aliens Challenger. But the new set then also introduced Dr. Hamsterville, infamous scientist that gets cheaper to play when you have a bunch of aliens in your discard, as well as Bleakly, Arctic Naturalist, that draws you a card when you have an alien, along with a sizable body. And yeah, all in all, it seemed like a fun way to brew around this. Now, another highlight is that this list has a lot of Lilo characters, starting early with Lilo's Snow Artist on turn 1. That's a new one. And then also the Lilo Bundled Up on turn 2. That's also a new one from Winterspell. And with so many Lilo characters in the list, this Pudge just turns into like a free character. And that can help in this deck because, well, you can just play it for free before you discard your hand to, say, Beyond the Horizon. It draws you a card for free when you control the Stitch Rockstar. And it's even a deity for He Hurled His Thunderbolt. So, yeah, this list just aims to show off a whole bunch of the new synergies that we can build around. Now, again, I have not played a game with this deck. I'm not sure if it is going to evolve into a tournament powerhouse. But yeah, I did craft it carefully with like a look at curve and uninkable counts and synergy potential. And yeah, these are just the types of lists that I always like to build when a new set comes out, and then jam a bunch of games to see which cards or which synergies overperform and which elements may ultimately not be powerful enough to stand up to the top tiers of the current core constructed metagame. But I certainly had fun brewing up this Alien Song deck.
Yeah, this looks like something I would love to try, man. It looks very thematic too. I mean, it might not be the most super over the top. It might be. I don't know. This could be your DLC Ghent winning list right here. You never know. I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think about it? Can you guys see this list? Any initial thoughts? I mean, I don't want to. We have quite a few lists to go through, so maybe we don't want to go all the stuff. Just initial thoughts. Thumbs up. Anything you would add? Anything you would take away? We'll just kind of kick it around. If you don't have anything, that's cool too. Anybody, floor is open.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool idea.
Sorry.
I think it's a really cool idea. I think using this a coup card, it basically changes how a lot of the typical play patterns of the meta has played out over the last 6 months, where a lot of these decks, the most popular decks, have been built around using their interaction on turn 4. So out of Blurple, this is a ramped to Elsa. In Purple Steel, it's a Strength of Raging Fire being sung on the 4th turn. In Green Blue, it's like a Clarabelle shift with You're Welcome sung. So all of these things happen on turn 4. So it's a really important breakpoint to make sure that the threats in your deck are not coming down on that turn. And that's where the problem with the Rockstar Stitch has previously been, is that the shift line comes down on the 4th turn. You can't really get value out of it because you kind of need to untap with it to be able to really utilize its effect. Of course, you have pudges and some of these effects, but if you're able to play it down on the 3rd turn when you're going first with a few of these different effects, or at least when you do play it, you have some extra ink open because you could reduce the cost of it, then you're kind of able to circumvent some of the most common ways that some of the most popular decks have been able to interact with your threats previously, and some of the ways that the format has been warped around these cards.
I like it, man. Very well
said.
Yeah,
and even I'll say even the new Stitch, the 5-drop, the Carefree Snowboarder, that's also a card that feels much better when you can deploy it early, perhaps on turn 3 with a Troubadour and a Akut at a Moody, because you might be able to get like multiple quests in for free cards before the opponent can actually answer it. So yeah, like as I said, any cost reduction effect always deserves close scrutiny when it is newly released.
Okay. I like it. Okay, so we have another deck that you submitted, Mr. Carson. So I'll pull that deck list up now. Unless anyone else has anything they want to say about this one, but we have another one coming down the tubes. This one's another Frank Karsten special, Amber Emerald Todd. Okay, Todd is a card that a lot of people are kind of speculating hard on. I personally like the guy. I think he's got a good attitude. He's got a good stats. Especially with the Willow Tweed, you can get them out for free. But Frank, can you kind of go over some of the same theories? Is it very similar to the previous strategy, or is there some unique things about this deck that kind of tell a different story?
It certainly uses some similar cards, but this list like aims to start with Todd all alone on turn 1, which then sets up Vixie Forest Friend on turn 2. And any 2 lore evasive character that early in the game, that's already quite good, especially when it effectively has Singer 3, because for example on turn 3 you can then use Vixie to sing Akut at the Moody, just shift the big Todd knows all the tricks onto the small one, and already lead with a very imposing board state. Alternatively, this deck uses another card where I saw, you may play something for free, which is always exciting to build around. That's Widow Tweed, Kindly Soul, which again you can ramp into with Akut at Imuti. So here the idea is that you just discard the big Todd to any of the draw and discard effects in the deck, with Strike a Good Match being a relevant one from Winterspell reprint. And then you just put the big Todd there and use Widow Tweed to just play him effectively for free from the discard. And that gives you more consistent access to just dominant board states early on. And speaking of that, that Todd knows all the tricks. Like the dream in this deck is to amplify his lore output with Darling Deer, so that suddenly Todd quests for 4, and then ready him twice by choosing Todd with some of the actions in the deck, or even with Scrump as an item. You can also choose Todd twice to lower his strength. That doesn't really matter, but you get to ready him twice and quest to victory. And then Scrump also pairs nicely, of course, with Under the Sea, so that kind of tied it all together. Now, whether this list is going to be better than the more traditional dog style build with like Lady and the Tramp, I don't know. There may be too many moving pieces that you have to assemble, but there are certainly some exciting new possibilities showcased in this list.
Man, I like a good Frank Karsten list, man. They look so cool and carefully crafted. Gentlemen, we'll open up to you. Fungus, what do you think about this deck? Is it something that, I know this is not specifically in your wheelhouse of playstyle, but I know you got a lot of experience. What do you think about a deck like this and those synergies? Can you see that becoming something down the road, or you're not feeling it?
No, I'm super into this style of deck list. Actually, I'm kind of into a combo deck.
Okay.
Ultimately, and this kind of reads combo to me more than, like an aggressive slant. A card that I have looked at with this strategy and haven't put any hours into it, like Frank, and in this case, is the what is it called? The Retro Evolution Device is a card that I have looked at in conjunction with the Todd the Widow Tweed, guess a way to kind of recuperate some of that card advantage and maybe cheat out Clarabelle's, and then just get a Widow out, and then have Todd come back. You sacrifice your Todd, get a Prince Philip out. So I think there's some nonsense there. I'd have to put more time into it to actually see if the juice is worth the squeeze. But I do I really like reanimating stuff. So that is one of, if my control decks don't work out, I would love to play a combo deck where we're doing nonsense out of the graveyard. So I'm super into it. But I definitely want to put some time in with these cards and then see if Retro Evolution Device has any momentum in this style of deck.
Something I would definitely be looking to play in this style of deck is the Prince Philip shift line. It can pair really nicely with Circle of Life, and of course, you can develop the shift line very quickly with a Akud. So you can, for example, play the Ursula Vanessa on the second turn, play your Prince Philip with Ward on the third turn, and then you have 2 cards that can sing 3-cost songs. So you can sing the Akud to reduce the cost of the shift line to 4, and Malicious, Mean, and Scary, and then blow out your opponent's first 3 turns, which will probably leave them extremely far behind in the game if you have a 6/6 evasive developed, because a lot of the decks in the meta can't answer that, and then you're going to start questing for a lot very quickly, and then you also have a lot of flexibility in the later game, bringing it back with Circle of Life. If you have Malicious, Mean, and Scary in your hand and 8 singers on the board, you can simply just play Malicious, Mean, and Scary and then sing Circle of Life to wipe their board, and it's extremely powerful. So that would be something that I would try to fit in. Obviously, the deck list looks pretty tight, but it's kind of one of the most powerful things you can do in this meta, so it's something I certainly have my eye on.
All right. So we'll keep it moving. Like I said, we do have a few deck lists that we need to get through. So we'll go ahead and keep it going. Frank has also submitted an Amethyst and Emerald strategy. This one looks cool. It's playing Snow Fort. That's a card I like a lot. And it's also playing that new Chernobog as well. Frank, can you talk to me about this one? What are we trying to do with this deck, and what do you think the goal of the possibility of a deck like this breaking the meta, quote unquote?
Breaking the meta, well, we'll have to see about that, but at least it should be a fun possibility, and I'll just try all of these decks against at least the top decks that were in the metagame prior to Winterspell, and well, if they manage to win more games than they lose, then that's a good sign. But as with any brew, I never have too high hopes. In this list, one highlight, the main idea behind the list is to leverage the new boost cards from Winterspell. That's Donald Duck, Fred Honeywell, that basically doubles the boost effects of your characters, and then rewards you with fresh cards when they leave. If you combine that with Genie, Magical Researcher, which is one of the new boost cards from Winterspell that kind of scale with the amounts of cards under them, then suddenly, you can quest for enormous amounts of lore. And well, if you then combine that with Pocahontas, Following the Wind, I'm always excited by early drops that can quest for enormous amounts of lore. Like if you have, say, a Genie with 4 cards under it, which is only 2 boosts. If you control the Donald Duck, then suddenly the Pocahontas can effectively quest for 6 in one go, which is pretty absurd. Meanwhile, Minnie Mouse, Mrs. Cratchit, is a 5-drop that rewards you for building around boost. And this deck has plenty of strong boost characters. Cheshire Cat is probably the best known one. Already did some good work in the previous format. And with these additions, you can kind of supercharge those abilities. The Snow Fort that you mentioned, threw in a couple copies, looks fine, looks playable, relevant effect. Although this deck doesn't really use it for synergy purposes. I also included a copy of Tigger, which might indeed be a strong card in the new metagame if you are up against aggressive decks and need to at least have some interaction to answer their early 2-drops. But in this deck, you can even bounce your own, say, Flynn Rider as a boost character, and then get a whole stack of cards back to your hand for value. So there's a bunch of fun synergies to brew around. Final thing to mention is the addition of White Rabbit late again, which looks like one of the better underdogs to me. It's serviceable on turn 2 if need be, but really efficient on turn 1. Sometimes these decks, these green-purple decks with Dumbo played like the Pegasus 1-drop, the 1/1 evasive. Well, the White Rabbit, if you are on the draw and play it on turn 1, is like way better. And yeah, that alongside Dumbo seems like some good synergies there as well. So a bunch of cool stuff that this deck is trying to showcase. Most notably, the boost mechanic, which literally got a boost in Winterspell.
Nice. I like the deck a lot, Frank. I think it's another great one that I'm excited to try. But gentlemen, any quick thoughts on this deck before we move on? We'll start with you, Fungus.
Yeah, the GD Magical Researcher has been a menace. I haven't seen it in this style of deck yet, but I will say that it definitely seems to be a player early on in the purple steel decks, and I would imagine in this style of deck list with the Pocahontas, that combo is something I have seen people trying out very early on, and definitely the power level is there. So definitely one to watch. It kind of seems maybe a little bit that it's not going to be that impactful, but for slower decks, it just creates a situation where it can't be, if you don't have the ability to challenge it or don't have the ability to remove it right away, it's just ticking up and up and up, and creates a really dangerous situation for slow decks. So it definitely is going to have impact in the meta in some way, shape, or form.
Okay. What about you,
Thiago?
You agree?
Yeah, I think it's a fine card. I think the cards don't really impact the board super well, so I think it's gonna have to be in a very specific meta where they really shine. I want to highlight this Chernobog card. This card, I literally learned about this card like 2 days ago, and I've never played with it or ever seen it played. I've never seen anybody talk about it, but this card looks so sick. I feel like if you ever play this card on turn 5, you just win the game. And so, like, I don't know if, like, right now it's not that good or whatever, but, like, maybe in the future, like, it's gonna warp the meta or something, but, like, this card looks so beyond broken to me.
Yeah, I played with this Chernobog a lot. I will say I had a similar reaction to like, oh, this is just Maleficent Dragon on turn, when you first time you play it, and it is. It's Maleficent Dragon the first time you play it, and then it's the worst card in your deck every other time you play it. So you get one big boost, and if that's enough, I don't know the answer to that. I played it in green blue. There may be another shell where it's better. Green blue can specifically set up a situation in which we're not doing anything on the board until it's go time. So it seemed like, okay, this is going to have to be a good one. It's one of the cards I tried out early on. So there may be a deck list that can really take advantage of it, and maybe it's better in other decks in the mid to late game than it was in green blue, but definitely high power level. The key thing with this one is that it is a May, so it is just like a dirtily 5-cost uninkable card in the mid to late game. Even if you don't do anything good with it. So it's just a bad draft card or whatever, in the mid to late game. But I don't think you could ever play more than 2 copies. But I think the first copy is fire and the second copy is awful. But it's a really powerful card. So I don't know exactly where it lands, but I tested this one quite a bit.
Yeah, the first thing that came into my mind is playing it in some just like normal tempo purple shell, like where you're curving and then you curve into this, you target their genie with it, and then you just kind of snowball the game very heavily then. But the card that I wanted to pair it with is It Calls Me, which is just like a cantrip that removes 3 cards from their discard, but that card is unfortunately rotated out, so you'd have to do that in Infinity, and I think that is much trickier to do because you have to cross a certain barrier of power level. So yeah, that's kind of why I haven't gotten around to trying it, but if we see some effects like It Calls Me, which are just like efficient, like 1-mana cantrips or something, it's like very low opportunity cost to put in your deck, then I would not be surprised if like in 15 months or something, this card is like super strong.
Dude, sorry, go ahead, Frank.
In this deck, it is just aimed to be indeed like a Maleficent Dragon on turn 5, taking out their 4 or 5 drop. But it does mean that you should not challenge or offer any challenges in the turns before, which this deck may have some trouble with because there are also some aggressive questers in there, and like not questing for a couple turns because you have the Chernobog coming up may be a little awkward. At the same time, playing Chernobog in a list like green-blue may also be a bit questionable, because that also wants to go for like a long game, and then if you draw it in a long game when the opponent already has characters in the discard, it's a bit underwhelming. So it really should go in a deck that wants to win quickly, but not necessarily quest with or like lead to situations where the opponent puts characters in their discard in the early turns. And perhaps actually the evasives in the deck do help with that. But yeah, absolutely an interesting option.
For sure, I like it. I like the deck, and I like the shout there from "It Calls Me" coming from Thiago. I never would have guessed that you drop a "It Calls Me" here on the Procast. So get into the carpool. Respect the Grussel. All right, gentlemen, we got one more Frank Karsten special coming up. Frank Karsten also submitted the dogs are back in the building. Amber and Emerald dogs. This deck looks pretty spicy and also super terrifying. I think this is going to be a strategy that's played very heavily coming into the set. I mean, a lot of players are going to lean on this aggro deck, especially early on in the format. But Frank, can you just talk about this build? Why'd you build it this way? You got some hot text in there as well, as you often do.
Yeah, well, apparently a bunch of players are already playing or brewing with dogs. I don't really know what other people are building. This was just me, building my own deck from scratch. But the headliner is certainly Grandmother Willow, Ancient Advisor, which can like effectively reduce the ink cost of Tramp, Street Smart Dog by 2, and that can lead to very fast openings. A notable addition I felt like was Stitch, Naughty Experiment, a new 1-drop. So the Stitch will transform the 1-drop Lilo into a solid quester. It's like the perfect like 1-ink shift enabler for Stitch. Rockstar, which I already saw had like good synergy with the Pudge. And you can also grant like small opposing characters Reckless, which seems pretty powerful if you then force them to challenge into the Raja as like an early bodyguard. That feels like a solid early curve out. Another highlight in this deck is Mulan, Resourceful Recruit, the new 2-drop, which can just quest for enormous amounts of lore. And in this deck, when you boost Mulan's strength with Tramp, Enterprising Dog, or the song version, He's a Tramp, then Mulan can just single-handedly quest for 6 lore, and then in the dream scenario, just ready her with You Came Back, and you can just snatch victory in a single turn. With all those new possibilities. Dogs does look like a formidable contender in the new Winterspell Core Constructed metagame.
Just sends a sudden chill down my spine, man. Just looking at these cards and just facing. Whenever I have to face up against dogs, I always feel a little bit of anxiety. I know Fungus may not agree with that. I mean, he loves this is his favorite matchup to play. He told me that before the show started. Fungus absolutely loves playing dogs. He wants to play them all the time. Can you just talk about this deck, Fungus? What do you think about it as a control player?
Yeah, I just got my 4th copy of Headless Horseman. I didn't have a playset before. Sisu's ready to go. I will kill them all if I need to, but I'm hoping we're not there. But no, it's a really strong deck. Like it's I think you have a really good proactive game plan, and this kid kind of was the boogeyman scenario I was talking about, where you can get that early Stitch Rockstar in play and just run through your entire deck, pudge, draw 3. That kind of scenario is crazy. You can put such a wide board out while having a healthy hand. You have disruption tools you can call upon in these decks with Ursula and Mowgli. So we're just, I think if these decks are strong, we are going to have to build our decks in such a way that we are answering them early and often. So, but it's tough if they can get an early Stitch in these decks and can't just start, going wide. You now have to deal with this big upright character that has to be dealt with a direct removal. and you also have to deal with a super wide board where they drew a bunch of cards. So, it may not be a consistent enough game plan, but I think there's a lot of powerful tools in this deck. So this, I think, is one of our boogeymen in the new format.
I concur. Thiago, do you concur? Or do you disagree? Do you think this deck is fake? Do you think it's a fake announcement and the meta's going to sort this thing out super quick?
No, I think Dogs is really, really strong. It's certainly one of the biggest contenders of something that I would play when the set comes out. It's definitely in high consideration for me. I think that the Rockstar builds that people have been playing around with are not my favorite. I think that they end up struggling a lot to some of the really powerful mid-range purple decks that people love playing. I think just the fact that these decks are typically playing much fewer discard cards, the Mowgli's and Ursulas, so they're not super adept at taking away Strength of Raging Fire from Purple Steel, and then they get their shift target, Strength of Raging Fired, and then the game plan can be a lot more clunky. Or out of a Blurple deck, if you shift on turn 3 or 4, they are curving it into. You're not able to instantly use the Rockstar Stitches ability unless you have like a Pudge, and then you're just doing it like once or whatever. And then they can just like Elsa down your Rockstar and then challenge it with like a Rafiki and the Elsa without you getting a ton of value out of it. So I think that the Rockstar versions have struggled a lot into the purple decks. I do think that the Rockstar versions, they're typically played with some copies of Under the Sea, and I think that those decks absolutely dominate the Dog Smears. I think that the Dogs players can't answer the shift target, so the shift comes easily, and then you are left with a 3/5 that doesn't ever get Under the Sea. The 3/5 just sits there. They can't interact with the character standing up. It gives you Singer 6, so any other character, you're already at Singer 8. And then you just every single turn are drawing 5 cards, completely interact with a bull. And then you're just eventually going to find the Under the Sea over a couple turns of drawing 6 cards a turn while being completely untouchable. Even if you get Under the Sea back, then you just play 5 more cards, and then you're eventually going to Under the Sea back the Dogs player. So I think that the best angle for the Rockstar decks is to have at least a few copies of Under the Sea so that you are really able to dominate the other Dogs decks in the format. I think that this list is really interesting because it's taking full advantage of the Milan with the UK backs, and I think that the way the format is now, it's a little bit tricky to set up, but I think that in a couple sets or whatever, when we get a slightly bigger card pool, something like that could be really strong. I think the Tramp filtering to set it up is really strong. I think being able to just draw and discard a bunch of cards and then bring back both the Mulan and or the Tramp with the 5-cost lady is like a really important thing to keep note of. So I like a lot of the elements here, but I do think the big menace of the format is just going to be like a very traditional Dogs deck with a couple of new additions like the Grandmother Willow and Nani.
Right on. I probably concur with you. I think both of them are going to be absolutely nightmares to face off against, and seeing you convert to the dark side or the dog side, it's kind of breaking my heart. I'm not going to lie, Thiago. I like to see you playing some Amethyst and trying to be the hero and not turn and become the villain. But it is what it is, and I still love you no matter what. All right, moving on. We got Fungus now. Fungus going to show up, and Fungus is going to submit his set Winterspell list. But you may notice, looking at this list, at least what jumped off the page to me, is that Fungus has included no new cards in this strategy, and I'm sure there's a story to tell from this. So Fungus, this is your bread and butter, what a lot of people know you for. You gained a lot of notoriety playing this strategy. The Sapphire and Emerald strategy won your DLC on this deck, and you're just known around the community as someone who grinds a lot, okay? After all your testing and all of your grinding and all of your online play, what made you show up with a very similar deck to that you played in set 10?
Yeah, some pretty notable differences, but I'll talk about like all the phases I went through. So
okay,
like the cards that were consideration for me were like Moana. She's a card that I looked at originally and was like, okay, it's kind of It's reminiscent of some strategies I have played in other TCGs. Reasonable body can trigger Cinderella. Maybe this has some merit in a deck where we're trying to net gain cards if we don't have to ink cards from our hand. And she was fine. I didn't really think she moved the needle in any of the matchups that were going on right now, especially in where everybody's playing proactive aggro strategies and getting that out of their system. She wasn't really. I wouldn't really hear for her. Of the Turnabog we talked about, the Turnabog Unnatural Force is another one I did try quite a bit, and definitely a very powerful card to play in this type of strategy where, like Frank kind of mentioned, this deck isn't looking to trade in the early phase of the game, so maybe you can just get one off of them if it's powerful enough on its own. Maybe it had a decent include in this deck. He was fine. I think he was a reasonable include in the versions of the deck I tried him in, but wasn't. I don't think this is its permanent home if this card is going to be one of the meta for quite a while. Other cards that are, green-blue, like Centric, Strike a Good Match, we got that one reprinted, Let It Go. These aren't, I don't think you necessarily want these cards over anything else just yet. And then stuff like Pete, Ghost of Christmas Future, I tried out just a little bit, and there may be some merit to him coming into the new set. I know we are going to talk about some blur hole lists that have him as kind of a feature in a little bit, but our primary card draw engine for me still is the power of the Clarabelle shift line and kind of Donald and some of the tools that we're using there. So wasn't necessarily looking for this type of tool just yet. One of the main things I will say moving into this, like moving through all these different cards, is that I think in the way the meta sits right now, Mother Knows Best is set at an all-time low, so it wasn't super high on putting that card in my deck right now. If everybody's on dogs, Mother Knows Best looks embarrassing, so I don't want that in my deck. And then putting Let It Go back in the deck and Hades in this deck is kind of a nod to how proactive everybody is being right now. You just want hard answers for a lot of things they're doing. You want the ability to wipe the board for some of these dogs decks and some of these Amber Steel decks even that are seeing play right now, whether they be the songs versions or kind of the more aggressive slants. On having Under the Sea in your deck, I think, is not as one matchup specific anymore, and then we're trying to play a little bit differently to the board when we're playing stuff like Hades. So I tried all kinds of different versions of blue green. I'll say I only have like 150 best of one games so far, so we're only very low numbers right now, but I was able to hit like number 4 on the best of one ladder with this deck after getting my soul crushed by some dog stacks in the process. So so it kind of landed just like, hey, there's nothing new going on here except for I'm putting Hades Under the Sea back in my deck. And I think this is a reasonable choice if you really, really have to play blue-green. But honestly, I think in this meta, it's a hostile place for blue-green for the most part. This is okay, and I think if the meta shakes out, we can kind of shape our deck to beat whatever the meta looks like in these colors, if that's something you're looking to do. But I think Blurple is a more reasonable strategy right now. I don't think blue-green really gained any power edges in from the new cards in the set. And Thiago and some others highlighted this too. A lot of other decks did get some includes that just change the dynamic of their deck or change the way they can play into the current meta. So blue-green, kind of a different place. We're in a waiting pattern.
Okay. And before I get Frank and Thiago here to get some thoughts on that, I just kind of want to pick all your guys' brain really, really quickly. Is there any merit to just kind of staying familiar and playing cards that a lot of people, myself included, a lot of newer players who may be watching this in the future or in the Metafy right now, when new cards come out, you're very you're very quick to go to the new cards because obviously the new cards should, in theory, be more powerful than the older cards. And you're just excited to try something new. But is there any thought to saying, hey, let's just stick with what works and try to enhance what we've already been doing and see if it fits, or just staying where you are if it's still good? What is there any decision making there from you, Fungus?
Yeah, I think it's worth to throw everything at the wall and see if it sticks. That's kind of where I'm at. So there's a lot of I've seen a lot of cards over the years of TCG playing that people said this is a bad card and label it very quickly. And as new tools kind of unfold, try everything out, make sure it's bad. The Retro Evolution device is a big one. Like, it reads as probably not that great, but it has a lot of really dangerous text lines on it. So that puts me in a Bruin mode, and it might be terrible. It probably is terrible, but if it's not terrible and it's good, it's going to be a strategy that we haven't really seen in this game before. So, but yeah, I'm willing to try anything that is kind of on the spectrum, at least a little bit, and then fall back on what we know is going to be good.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, to expand on that, I think that you kind of have different goals when the format comes out. I think in this game, the history has shown that people get really rewarded for really knowing their deck very well. I think if you take a look at like Ed won all his tournaments on red purple, DKP played blue red shark for the entire first year and purple for the entire second year. Of course, Fungus did really well this set with blue green, which he has been playing for a long time, and had a ton of comfortability on. I was doing very well with purple steel in all of these tournaments, and so I think that knowing your deck and knowing all the matchups and everything you need to do in every situation is extremely important. And I think that it's even more important when the set comes out and people have less knowledge about it. So if you have knowledge about what's going on, then you get this huge edge. For me, when Set 9 came out, I was playing a release weekend tournament. And so my testing going into the set was very focused. I played purple for a day, I played amber steel for a day, and then I had my purple steel deck list locked in 10 days before the tournament or something ridiculous, right? 2 days after the card list was revealed. And then I won that tournament, and the next weekend I won the second week tournament, and then Frank, for example, won his DLC with purple steel, and then he was playing a release week tournament for set 10, and then he just brought back the purple steel because it's what he had just played, and he did super well in that tournament. I think he got top 4. However, in this set, I was not playing a release week tournament, right? So I tried a bunch of different things, and then I ended up playing 4 major tournaments. I played 3 DLCs and the LCCC, and I played 4 different decks, and because I played a ton of decks when the set was first coming out, and I tried a bunch of different things, and I was able to get top 4 at a DLC, top 32 at a DLC, second in LCCC, all with different decks, right? And so I think that if you have tournaments at the start of the set, you really want to focus on playing one deck because that's going to give you the biggest edge. But if you are able to not have to do that because you don't have a tournament coming right up, you do get a huge advantage out of trying out a bunch of things and having different things to draw on. After Richmond, when Fungus and Sky played a blue-green mirror in the finals, that's going to cause waves to the meta, right? Blue-green was not looked at as this S+ tier super elite deck. It was looked at as one of the good decks going into Richmond. And then after Richmond, it was the meta's going to warp around this. A lot of people weren't playing set 10, but for me, there was still a DLC after that. So then I was able to draw on some of the experiences that I had when testing stuff at the start of the format, and then I landed on Amber Steel, which I thought was the best deck of that tournament. And so it kind of depends on what your goals are, and that's going to change depending on your schedule, what you're planning on playing, and a bunch of different factors. But I think people do certainly get extremely rewarded for playing decks that they play well.
Wisdom. Wise beyond your years, man. Very well said, Thiago. Yeah. I like that. What about you, Frank? Any thoughts on that conversation or this deck in general?
No, I completely agree with what Thiago and Fungus said. I think there is just multiple approaches that can all work. If you have been a green-blue player for a while, then it is perfectly fine to stick with the deck, perhaps even with no new updates. And indeed, I am not sure if any of the new cards will even truly improve this strategy. And leverage your experience. So taking this to upcoming tournaments is perfectly fine. If you have enough time to try out new brews, then that can also pay off because sometimes you manage to break it. It's like all of these approaches are reasonable and can all lead to tournament success. You just have to know what to pick when. Specifically, it will depend on how much time you have available. If you don't have much time to prepare, then likely just stick with what you know best. and just play the deck better than anyone else. Ultimately, most tournaments come down to the decisions you make in the games rather than the deck you bring, and knowing how to make every decision from opening hands to inking to like every single small decision in the game will carry you to victory.
Oh, for sure. And also it'll save you a bit of money too. You don't have to go out and buy any new cards. You just already got your whole deck lined up already, so you're kind of good to go. You can just keep playing what works. But I think it's cool. I think it's great. It's a great approach. But Fungus, you submitted another deck though. You also have the Sapphire and Amethyst strategy. We have two Blurple decks, yours and Thiago's. I'll show Thiago's next. But this one is a deck that a lot of people, myself included, I think this might be one of the better decks in the meta. At least I feel this way. I think it has a lot of good matchups into the aggro decks. You guys spoke about Sven and Tigger. Tigger not featured here. But Fungus, can you talk about this deck from your perspective? What do you think this deck falls in this quote unquote metagame? Do you think it's going to be a contender at the end?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to kind of piggyback off that conversation and moving into this deck list, like the big thing for me as a person who plays mostly control strategies, like if there's a good control deck, I'm going to play the control deck. Like you can put money on that. I don't think it's wise to go into an event this early on with a control strategy when the meta is this wide open. Like if things narrow to a point very quickly, and then yes, it makes sense that I can tailor a deck to beat the very narrow meta game, right? And that's what control decks are looking to do. Is we need to play along a paradigm and kind of take advantage of what the decks in the meta look like. But I think Blurple is a safe choice, and it does gain some power upgrades potentially, at least some new angles of attack, and also has a very good proactive game plan. So it's kind of where I would land if I were going to Melbourne. I probably would be playing Blurple, and this is probably a similar list to what I would play. I did play some ladder games with this, not to as much as green blue, and even red blue I put some time on as well. But this deck, I know when a lot of other people that I've spoken to that were playing a lot of online games had done really well with it. A lot of the people that were on the top of the online ladder board were playing Blurple, and kind of this was in a way to potentially beat dogs. I think it probably isn't the best way to beat dogs, but it has some game there, whereas some of the slower decks probably just get eaten alive. No, but looks like Sven obviously is a good tool here. Pete is a nice grindy tool, has been really useful in this deck. And this is kind of the one I've been recommending to people if you have to play a tournament tomorrow. I like Blurple a lot in the meta. I think it gained new tools. I think you can play a lot of 1-drops and kind of contest early boards. Pete is a good upgrade. Let It Go is a good upgrade. And then I do think you do want to play more 5-drops as a result of Let It Go in your deck. So Pete is a great slot in there. Hades obviously was already okay, but good proactive game plan, good kind of controlling game plan, and Blurple still really strong on this meta. I don't think purple cards are going away anytime soon.
Agreed. Well, we'll take it to you, Thiago. Thoughts on Sapphire Amethyst as a whole? Granted, you have another deck coming up that's virtually very, very similar. So I'll save your thoughts, and then I'll hear Frank's thoughts here, and then we'll add more thoughts in on the second deck that we see.
Yeah, looks solid overall. Obviously, like a well-known archetype that will stay like competitively viable with the new set. Let It Go seems like definitely a relevant upgrade. For Sven and Pete, yeah, both do seem to fit the deck well, though I do have some concerns about both cards. With Sven, like you already have 4 uninkable genies at 4. Adding even more uninkable 4-drops can like force you to go off curve, perhaps too much. So there are some risks there. And with Pete, yeah, if you see it as sort of a 5-drop, then the deck this deck now has like 11 5-drops, which feels a bit heavy for the curve. So yeah, I'm not sure how many copies of these cards you would ultimately want to play in this deck, but both of them fit, and at least I can certainly see the first copy of each, and for more can potentially run into some of those concerns I mentioned.
And even keep it Pete as like that 6 drop, so you can have them come out on 5 and boost right away. I think there's some value there too. So I don't know. This deck, it seems solid. It's going to be there. Let's pull up Thiago's really quick while we have it. And they look very, very similar. Are there any differences at all? I think there might be some differences at the 1 cost slot. We have some different ratios on the Pete. You have Thiago is back in the deck, and you have maxed out on all the songs here. Thiago, can you just talk about your build versus Fungus's build, and why'd you make some of those differences? And then I just want to hear some of your overarching thoughts on Blurple all around.
Okay, yeah, no, this is just like a starting point list for people who want to just take the deck into the next meta. I think we added the same new cards. I agree with Frank that I think 11 5s is a bit too much for my taste. I think a lot of the times in this deck, particularly when you're going second, the 5 drops are not really something that you ever want to play on your 5 ink turn. It's like very typically you are playing something like you're playing a 4 cost on your 4 ink turn, and then the next turn you're playing an Thiago because they had to answer your 4 cost, particularly because your deck is built around Demona these days. So being able to ramp into Demona with a thin hand is really important. A lot of these like card advantage 5 drops are really not what you're looking to do. I think the Let It Goes are able to be sung or hard cast pretty easily. I think they usually come after the Demona when you're like chaining Demonas into each other. So I don't think that they're like too heavy on the hand. And then the Sven is a extremely powerful card in some of these purple mirrors. I think it's really excellent when it's paired with so many exert effects that Blurple has access to, like the Else and the Demona. Like other purple decks have those, but the fact that Blurple ramps into them makes it way easier for the deck to cast, so you do it much more consistently. And then like Sven coming in, rushing, challenging something, and then living, and then being able to be paired with a Demona to exert another powerful thing, and then challenge that again for 5 because he's evasive, so he kind of just sits there with damage on him, kind of untouchable. The Pete could be Hades. I think Hades is honestly kind of better, but I didn't want to add one new card. Yeah, I mean, I think Blurple is just a really excellent deck. I think it's in my opinion the best deck. I know a lot of people are scared of dogs, but I think a lot of the best Blurple players are having a lot of success into that matchup, and then I think Blurple attacks the other decks in the meta extremely efficiently. I think having these 12 like Inkwell effects, I don't know if you're going to max it out, but having an extremely high density is really excellent to get around the Emerald Chromacon, which is the way that dog beats you. And so when you're pairing these cards, particularly with Demona also, like where both players are refilling their hands, and then the thing that they spend the majority of their ink playing the turn after your Demona is taken out for 0 ink with Let It Go or something, is really, really devastating for them. And if you ever draw a Demona off a Demona, like the game pretty much ends. I think a lot of the decks are really thin on Thiago answers. I think early in the meta, Icons of Thiago are typically really excellent. I think the card takes over the game a lot. I think especially in Blurple mirrors, the card's going to be really strong because it's really difficult to play Hypnotic Strengths when you're already not devoting all of the slots to Into the Unknown and Let It Goes and these kind of effects. So yeah, just some things to like think about when you're kind of transitioning into the new Blurple deck. But yeah, at the end of the day, you're still like a ramping into Demona deck. So nothing drastic changes.
Or is this your deck you're taking to Australia? Are you going to Australia? And did you just leak the sauce here?
It'll be in the backpack for sure. I usually only bring like 2 decks or something, so it'll probably be in the backpack.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, any Blurple thoughts before we move on to the remainder of Thiago's decks? We have 2 more decks to get through, and then we can start to wrap the show. We got a couple other topics we need to talk about just super quickly. But any other Blurple thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, I'll say that I do like maxing out on the Inkwell effects because, the first Let It Go or Hades or Into the Unknown that you play gives like a sizable advantage to the opponent. Like that extra first ink does matter. But then additional ink they gain beyond that typically has diminishing returns because at some point like they cannot even spend all the ink. So when you max out on those sorts of effects, the downside ultimately gets lower the more you have of them. So I like that aspect.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Okay, all right. Thiago, you got another one coming up. This is your Thiago Green Steel deck. I know you say you just whipped this thing up. You haven't really put too many hours on it, but theoretically, can you just talk about some of the theory behind it? It does seem reminiscent to the deck that Frank showed earlier, theoretically, but can you just talk about it, what you're trying to accomplish with this strategy?
Yeah, basically, I saw that green steel was the lowest representation deck so far in the areas people have been playing. So I was like, surely green steel can't be that bad, right? So the most exciting thing about this color combination for me was pairing the Todd and Vixie cards with Strength of a Raging Fire. So being able to play a 3-cost character on the second turn and getting the initiative on the Strength Wars, where one person's able to sing Strength on the other person's first singer, and then really snowball them back a couple turns, is something pretty interesting. I also think cards like Lewis can be really, really strong in this meta to attack the aggressive decks. I think casting a Lewis on a Grandmother Willow can be really, really disruptive. And they don't always have great ways to get around that kind of thing. Like they have the tramp, but then they're not able to tramp other things. And if you ever played 2 Lewises, the game is really, really over. This Snow Fort's a card that a lot of people have been playing around with, typically in green purple to pair with the evasives, but just it's a really, really oppressive effect. The resist on the opponent's turn, like if you have a card like this Vixie, then all of their genies and Elsas really don't attack into it super well, so it can take over the game. And then you have the Webby shift line also to attack these decks, so you can go Todd into Vixie or Webby into Shift, which are both really, really strong openers. And then you also have the Angel, which is another card that attacks the aggressive decks really well. So you just kind of have a lot of tools that are able to hit the meta in ways that a lot of the other color combinations aren't able to tap into. So I think it's like worth keeping an eye on, even though it's the 15th out of 15 least has the least representation. So I think the color combination's like entirely reasonable, and I don't think it should be written off quite yet.
Yeah, those numbers got to be made up. It's got to be more green steel than that. I'm not buying it. Okay, you're selling it. You're selling it.
I'll send you the spreadsheet.
All right, I'll check the spreadsheet. But do you guys agree? Is green steel the lowest played deck in the metagame because it's the worst? Is it terrible? I thought it would be Emerald and Ruby for sure, but maybe going into this meta, people think that they can cook with it. Any thoughts on this strategy? We'll kick to you, Fungus. Anything you want to say about this deck from what Thiago's cooking? Is this some good cook, or do you need to send it back to the kitchen?
It was interesting. It's not. So yeah, I see definitely where he's going with it. Like Lewis definitely was a tool that I looked at in prior betas to attack dogs, and with them playing more things that don't want to quest and just sit there. Lewis definitely is an angle of attack there. I see kind of the 2 lines he's going for, like getting the early singer out for the strength to turn early between the Webby shift line and the Todd interactions. So and the Goliath I'm into. So I don't know if this is where we want to be, but like Angel is a really powerful card. I've seen Blue Steel. I've definitely seen that in some Amber Steel builds. I think Frank featured it in his earlier. So Angel is a line of attack also to kind of hit these aggro decks early, to have some value into stuff like 1-drop Clarabelles. If you do see blue-green decks kind of running around, you can get these out early potentially and punish them. So yeah, there's something good going on here. This may be an angle of attack to fight an early aggro meta game for sure.
Right on. How about you, Frank? Any thoughts?
I definitely like the idea of pairing Vixie with Strength of a Raging Fire. That is a good amount of synergy. For the rest of the deck, it's like a bunch of viable cards. I'm a little puzzled by the Donald Duck in there. I guess it synergizes well with the Angel, where you effectively get like some removal for free with those extra cards you draw. I'm not sure if this is going to keep up with the perceived top tier decks in the metagame, But I like how it shows that within every color pair, you can build, something that stands a reasonable shot in any tournament. And
Yeah.
well, who
That's all
knows?
you
Maybe the snow fort is broken. Haven't really played with that yet, but yeah,
That's what the streets are saying. They're saying that the card is broken.
All right, well,
But-
we'll see. Yeah.
I agree.
I think we can't throw green red out the window right away either. I've been hearing some spicy things about green red. I gotta find a deck list, but
That's next
week.
week.
We got a Donald shift now. We got a red one drop. We can shift Donald.
That's right. Still some more too.
I put stocks into. I bought a bunch of copies of in Robin Hood, the 4-cost red. I'm trying to think of his name, but the
Sharpshooter.
Yeah, the sharpshooter. Maybe that's the new move. So I made sure I had my play set and one more just in case the stocks are up on that. So some people are saying red green is the hotness.
It might be. I think Lilo's good.
I'm gonna see if people beat me up on it or if it's real life. But I think there's some tools there. That may be what keeps green still down is the power of green red.
There you
That's
go.
all I'm saying.
I don't know.
I think you're onto something there.
Let's cook. Let's go next week. Next episode, Fungus. I expect to see Fungus's take on Ruby and Emerald. Make it happen. Okay, it's going to happen. I believe it. But we're gonna keep it pushed. We got Thiago's last list. If I can get this thing to pull up, Thiago has one more list submitted. This one is a list that a lot of people are kind of high on. It's a very aggressive Amber Steel list, much different than the list that Frank Karsten submitted earlier. One that's more of a mid-range song style deck. This one's more of a aggressive deck. Thiago, thoughts on this deck? Is this something that you feel is going to have a place in this metagame, or does your take on the dogs versus this deck just makes it so unpopular?
Yeah, I think the way that these aggressive decks kind of have to go to best utilize the Willow Tree is going a lot smaller, and so we kind of see the exclusion of things like the Rhino Shiftline, which have previously played a big role in fighting the dogs matchup. I think something that you do get by playing this color combination that's important is you get the Fire the Cannons to help create these early advantages against some of the other aggressive decks that are trying to use the Willow Tree. I think if both players have a Willow Tree and you're able to fire the cannons theirs, you're able to make a pretty strong ink advantage pretty quickly. I think something else that's really important to note for this color combination is the addition of Nani. Nani being able to help give you more resources while also being a Strength of Raging Fire Singer, and notably being able to find you Doc, which previously was the only way to build any card advantage, is definitely a big boost for this deck. And then having the Angel coming out early when you're playing against some of the mid-rangey strategies to be able to sing Strength of a Raging Fire on the second or third turn can also be powerful. But I would say it's probably not my preferred aggro deck. I would probably lean towards dogs. Like you said, I think it's just a little bit more consistent into some of the other aggro decks, but the deck has a lot of powerful tools and can play really quickly and has some very strong disruption that some of the other decks don't have, between the Fire the Cannons, the Strength of Raging Fire, and notably also the Pete.
Absolutely. I think Fire the Cannons is such a great spot right now. But I'll open it up to the rest of the panel. What do you guys think about this aggro deck? We'll start with you this time, Frank. Any thoughts on this deck, or what would you do to make it better, or would you just take this deck and scrap it because it may not have a spot in the game?
So I like the new additions of Lilo and Pudge, as well as Nani. All of those can certainly fit into this aggressive shell. The Angel also works reasonably well, but there's only one song to really go along with it. I am wondering what happened to Tiana. That used to be one of the more menacing threats in a deck like this. Also with Aurora to accelerate into. I would probably include that over, I don't know, might be Pete or something else. And as for Fire the Cannons being a good answer to the Grandmother Willow, yes, perhaps, but it doesn't always give you an ink advantage when, say, an opponent plays Grandmother Willow and then immediately plays a 1-drop after it on turn 2. they have effectively only invested 1 ink into their Grandmother Willow. So your Fire the Cannons kind of trades evenly. And I think it might be better to just somehow exploit the low stats on Grandmother Willow with cards like Louise giving it Reckless, or like Under the Sea sweeping everything, because like answering their characters one by one, which you then also have to do on turn 2 when you're on the draw, thereby like preventing you from playing like an actual 2-drop on turn 2. Yeah, I'm not sure how well that is going to play out. Maybe it is going to be necessary, because like what else are you going to do in this color pair? Might be the way to build it, but I'm not sure if Fire the Cannons is going to be the ultimate answer if Grandmother Willow Dogs decks are going to be a major player in the format.
I mean, I think it plays. I mean, it's just in general a flexible card, right? Like it has targets in most of the decks. Even the slower decks are still playing like 8 1-drops and 4 Iagos and whatever the case may be. But like as you said, you're trading 1 ink for 1 ink on the first turn, but then you're like stopping them from having an additional. You're already trading evenly on the first turn, and then every single turn that passes, you get an ink off of it, basically, that you denied them from having. And I think that in these matchups, like both players are just like racing to vomit their hands. You're developing some of these inefficient bodies, like these Lilos are both like 2 cost, 1 attack, 2 questers. So like if your opponent's just able to play all of the cards in their hand, like you're really not doing anything particularly high value. And so you really need to slow them down. And then it also notably stops their under the sea breakpoints, because the Willow Tree, like if in the first 3 turns you have 6 ink, so players are only able to get to Singer 6, but then if you have the Willow Tree to give you an extra ink on the second turn and an extra ink on the third turn, then they are able to develop 8 Singers with their first 6 ink, and so then they get the Under the Sea an entire turn earlier. And then yeah, if you're able to take out the Willow Tree, then you can really make them stumble, especially since they're not really inking and playing cards like on turn 4 and stuff. They're not like inking to 4 and then playing 4 inks worth of characters. So it's not atypical that like one character would have been in a challenge, and then they're playing like 1 drop off their Willow Tree on the second turn, and then a 3 inks worth of characters on the third turn, and then 3 inks worth of characters on the fourth turn, and still don't have their Under the Sea Singers developed. Or if you're also able to add in a Strength of Raging Fire. I think the Fire the Cannons does a reasonable job of disrupting the Willow Tree. But yeah, again, most decks just have targets for it, particularly these other aggressive decks. If you're playing something like the Mirror and they play this 3-cost lady or something like that, it's just absolutely game over. But yeah, I would also say that it's not my favorite way to play an aggressive deck in this format.
I'll add something to that. Like to what Frank said, like it, and there's been a lot of Twitter discourse and stuff. But like I've definitely been like dooming the format, a little bit hyperbolic about Grandmother Willow, and like everyone's answer is like, oh, just shoot it with fire cannons. It's the game. The problem is over, right? To Frank's point, like yes, firing the cannons, like you're not getting that much value on that exchange. But to Thiago's point, like it expounds. If we let this thing just live and exist in a deck that has so much synergy with it, you will lose the game very quickly. Like these decks are set up to be able to take advantage of it. So I do think it's like if you're playing a steel deck right now, Fire the Cannons probably needs to be a stopgap to not let these amber decks just run away with the game. They have a lot of card advantage engines that just are driven by Grandmother Willow letting you dump your hand and then continue to refill. So it's not the cleanest answer in the world, but I'd rather clean it up with Under the Sea or one of these board wipes. But they have disruption, and I think you've got to stop their very early starts, especially when Under the Sea is involved, like Thiago pointed out. To Frank's point though, I would have thought Tiana would be included in this, and maybe this these are just early deck lists and whatever, we just didn't throw it in there. But one other maybe to mention in this deck is the Steel Lilo. this recently via a rules update gained a lot of power. So this thing actually is kind of a tough one to deal with now for decks that don't have just challengers, running in the wings. Like if you have a Tipo and you have a Rafiki, yeah, obviously you can deal with this pretty easily, but it does have a little more meat on the bones now, in addition to being like a synergy for Pudge. Just a little bit harder to kill. So something to maybe mention with our rules update is that Malicious Mean and Scary doesn't clean this up easily anymore. So if you have like MMS combos going on, this thing is still going to be a menace, and you're going to have to incorporate some sort of challenge with a Tipo or challenge with some sort of just leftover body out of your Blurple decks or whatever, before you think about wiping the board. So they have a lot of sticky threats in these decks, and they have a lot of more throughput than they used to with the Nani dock. I think it's a real contender, though. I think it's really a strong deck.
Absolutely, I agree. And you kind of segued right into our next and final topic. We are a bit over time, so I do apologize for taking so long. Hopefully, other viewers at home are still kind of rocking with the program, enjoying what we're doing. But we did have that new rulings update that came, and I'm sure you guys have had the opportunity to kind of look through that, or at least read some of the highlights that go through it, and kind of determines or kind of learn what the new updated rules are. Some of the bigger, more important ones are going to be decking out, or milling, as you guys call it in Magic the Gathering. You no longer can, mill. Once you mill at the end of your turn, if you have no cards left in your deck as turn player, you guys now lose the game. Opposed to it being a slightly different, if you could force your opponent to draw to no cards in their deck on their turn, they would lose. Now it is going to be you as turn player are going to be more at a disadvantage. So out of all the rules, can you just talk about that, or not all the rules, because again, we're overtime, but can you just talk about that one specifically? And also we can get into the deals damage, add damage, just your guys' quick around the horn thoughts on it. And we can go more into this next week once we get a little bit more time to really deep dive those rule changes. But we'll kick it to you first, Fungus, and then we'll just kind of go to Frank and then Thiago. Just some of the rules changes. Primarily, we're talking about that deck out. How do you feel about it? And is that going to change the way you build your decks, maybe going into Infinity, or just when you're playing the game? What are some of the takeaways that you have from the new rules updates?
Yeah, JD, you hit the nail on the head on that one. It really is going to impact the blue-red and the blue-steel players for Infinity, right? This is going to be an interaction that came up a lot in prior core metagames, where Whole New World was in play, or Hiram, decks that have a lot of card draw potential. But our control decks, you're having to kind of race your own deck sometimes. This has happened to me many times, where a Whole New World is killed me, or I have to account for a Whole New World killing me because I'm playing Hirams and I'm playing all these very heavy card draw effects. This actually is a pretty big deal there. Where they can no longer count on that as a win condition. If you just have a pile of Sisus in play and stuff, you can still just turn them sideways and win. You have one more extra turn. So it's not going to come up that often, but the control decks can deck themselves pretty easily, and not having to worry about a Whole New World just killing me out of nowhere is actually is a relevant rule. I don't think it changed much else. I don't think anybody else really gets impacted by this. There were no dedicated mill strategies or deck out strategies before, really. There was a couple of green steel, Whole New World recasted over and over again things, but I don't think those were real life. But it does impact the steel sapphire paradigm there, in Infinity specifically.
No, I concur. What about you, Frank? What do you think about these rule changes overall, and also this one? Do you think it was necessary? Are you mad at it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? What are your thoughts on it after reading such a drastic change?
Well, I never really get mad at rules updates. I just read them and accept them, and then think about does it change how I build my decks? And no, probably not. But it does indeed change some of the games with a Whole New World. I believe one of the reasons why they may have made this change was that previously, if you played a Whole New World and kind of decked both players simultaneously, you as the Whole New World player would lose the game. But this never really came out of the actual rules of Lorcana. I remember at the European Continentals, when I brought a Whole New World deck, I actually asked some judges, hey, I'm playing a Whole New World. I'm aware that I'm supposed to lose when, both players deck simultaneously, but I just went through the whole like comprehensive rules document, and like it doesn't actually follow from any of the rules. And it was explained, well, yeah, you're right, this is sort of a problem, but it's sort of an exception for this card. Now, such weird exceptions are not necessary anymore, because if that happens, you just lose at the end of your turn. That said, if I had been the rules manager, I may have turned the rule into, like, if a player ends their turn with no cards in their deck, or if they draw from an empty deck in their draw phase at the start of the turn, then they lose the game. Then you would have kind of retained the old rules, which feels more elegant, because the functional change, I'm not sure it is necessary, and may just lead to, confusion for players who were not aware, while cleaning up some of these awkward exceptions. But well, it is what it is, and we just roll with it. But it's good to know, the change happened.
I like it. Thiago, any thoughts? I mean, Frank kind of nailed it. My new goal, Thiago, and I think you got to join me on this journey. Let's see if we can get Frank to rage out one day. I just want to see it. It won't happen. We could try.
No, for sure not happening. But we'll try. We'll try our best.
Right.
That is actually the most Frank story of all time, though. Like, he literally read the entire rules document. Is like, actually, this is not the case. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of the changes, but like, it doesn't matter that much to me. These are neither are cards I'm gonna play. Like, I think I'll keep in mind when there's a Lilo on the opponent's board that I can't take it out with a Cheshire Cat. But ultimately, I'm just here to play the game that they give me. So I'll just see what the rules are, and then take my whatever I think will give me the best chance to win, and just play that. So
Sure.
I don't understand why. I'm not a fan of their reasonings or the need to make these changes. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that much to me.
For sure. I just wish they made them a bit more simplified too, like the put, add, or add move damage, put damage, dealt damage, receipt. What are we talking about? Let's just
it's ridiculous. Takes damage is dealt damage. Like
puts damage, places damage, adds a damage counter, deals damage. Come on, guys. Let's just clean all that up.
It's the opposite of what the game was like intended to be. It was supposed to be like all that stuff is simple, and then the complicated part is the decision making that you're doing throughout the game. Not like did I read this random rule that said that this like way that it's phrased, like if it has one word different that's like a synonym of the other word, like I don't know, it is what it is though. Like,
yeah, sorry go ahead, Fungus. What were you saying?
You're good, brother. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, as a judge from the Magic world for a long time, I am hoping that this is the path to becoming more consistent and intentional with wording. And from the comprehensive rules document and on cards, we have had 3 or 4 different wordings on putting stuff into your ink from your hand on cards, and like 2 of there's no consistency there, but I think they are starting to have those conversations internally about, okay, how are people interpreting these rules and being consistent on verbiage. So hopefully this is a change for the positive in that direction, but I'm kind of going either way on these rules changes.
Right on. It could just be also just setting it up for the future to make it easier. Like you said, just make it easier in the future. Also with the deck out or the mill out, maybe they can print more deck out or mill out related cards and add them to Core Constructed. And now they have this rule. They have like a little safety net so it doesn't get too degenerate or something like that. I think that could be an idea, at least that some concept that people are kicking around. But those are my thoughts. But gentlemen, I think this was a great episode number 5 of the World Class Procast, as this is my first one being here. I want to thank you guys a lot for allowing me to be here and be a part of this. As we're starting to wrap up the show, I'm going to kick it around the horn one more time for any final and closing thoughts as we start to bring the show down. We'll start with you again, Fungus, then we'll go to Frank, and then we'll kick it to you, Thiago. Thiago, I understand you're going to be here every week, right? Is that facts or no?
It's possible. Where nothing is set in stone yet. We're still kind of sorting things out.
Okay. Well, very cool. Well, Fungus, any closing thoughts that you have overall, or anything you want to say? Where can we find you when you're not here on the Procast?
Yeah, I've got. You can definitely find me in the founders Discord for World Class Cards. Now I'm out and about. I'm very active. I work a day job where I have highs and lows. I teach corporate executives PEMDAS, so that might piss Frank off. So if that people that make a lot more money than us don't know math, but no, warm welcome, guys. I really appreciate everybody on the team welcoming me in and starting conversations. Looking forward to doing more with the team. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Metafy in my own lane a little bit. So definitely look me up if you're looking for some advice and you think I can help with your next event.
Right on, right on. All right, Mr. Frank. Any closing thoughts you have for the show, and where can we find you when you're back in Lorcana? I'm glad to see you're back here. I want to see more Frank questing and challenging, and not too much blocking and flying and libraries. Okay, more Lorcana, less magic. I know it's tough, but we need you back, big dog. Any thoughts?
It's sometimes tough to keep up with multiple games at the same time, but yeah, looking forward to Core Constructed with Winterspell. It just promises to be an absolute blast, and there's a lot of exciting possibilities ahead. You can find me on Twitter at Karsten_Frank, and also should be at the DLC Ghent in a couple weeks, which is just like a couple hours drive or train from where I live. So that's almost close to the home DLC for me. I'm looking forward to it. 4,000 players there. It's gonna be an awesome weekend.
Excellent. Hopefully I can see you there. I'm trying to find a ticket, and I'll come over to Ghent and hang out with you guys and see how that whole thing goes out. So maybe I can see you there. But Thiago, what you got going on, man? What's coming up? Any shout outs, any special things you want to say? Close the show, please.
Yeah, I mean, upcoming for me is I have another week of preparation, and then DLC Australia, the release week, 1 week off. I'll be back for like 4 or 5 days, and then it goes straight to Ghent, and then from Ghent fly straight to Taiwan. That's the plan. So 3 DLCs in the first 4 weeks of the new set right now, just getting prepared for that. But I just want to say on behalf of the team, huge welcome to Fungus and JDZ. We're really happy to have you guys. And we're really excited about where the team's growing and where we're headed. So yeah, we're really, really thrilled that you guys decided to be a part of this, and yeah, we're gonna kick some butt this year. With the podcast already, it looks drastically different. I'm sure everybody noticed. So awesome! Shout out to JDC for doing all that. Things were pretty last minute, and so we're just trying to get things out for you guys watching. So thanks to all the founders and everybody supporting. And yeah, we're trying to make things as best for you guys as we can. It's obviously a work in progress, but you can feel free to give us some feedback. I think the Discord's a great place for that. And yeah, I think we just give it back to Mr. JDZ Quest for him to wrap up the show.
You got to keep it for a little while, because I understand there always is going to be some giveaways at the end of the show. Can you just walk me through it? I'm not. This is my first time. I'm a rookie to this, so I don't know exactly how to do the giveaway. I mean, I have some ideas, but if you could just kind of lead the charge on this very first giveaway, and I'll come up with some creative ideas going forward. But something needs to be given away at the end of this episode. I didn't make this up. This was told to me as a contractual obligation. Something must be given away. So please, Thiago, how do we do that, and what's the easiest way to set that up? Is it a question answer kind of thing?
So yeah, what we're gonna do is, okay, you wanna go ahead, Trick?
We are actually changing policy today. Thanks to everybody joining and hanging out with us last second, obviously, due to the amazing folks putting this together. Every viewer and attendee who was here in today's episode is getting a surprise care package being sent to them.
Oh, wow.
So stay tuned. I will make an official announcement inside of Discord and how to claim and how to redeem that package.
Well, look at that, man. Look at that. Christmas comes late. Winterspell is a Christmas miracle. Everybody's going home with everybody getting something. Okay, I love to see that, man. So we got more coming up. So next week, next week is going to be back on Tuesday, I believe, at 4 p.m. Eastern time is going to be the next episode number 6. So that is going to be what to look forward to. Also, go out and cheer on some of your favorite players as they're playing all over the world. The World Class Cards team is going to be raging on. So cheer them on, get into the Discord, tell your friends, and make sure you guys are supporting the broadcast. Until then, I think we're about to wrap this thing up, Mr. Shark. I think from there, greetings to all of you, or salutations until next time. I'm JDZ. I'm on a quest. Shout out to the room. Salute OGs. We're out of here. World Class Cards Procast. Episode 5 is signing off.